Hello, good evening, and welcome to Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. Iron Port is proudly brought to you by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Ghana Revenue Authority, Goyle Company Limited, Serene Insurance, and Ghana Link Network Services, the operators of the Integrated Customs Management System, ICOMS, at our ports. Now, the program is also streamed live on our social media pages on Facebook. You can watch us live at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA Ghana. Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA Ghana. On YouTube, we are streaming live at Iron Port Ghana. Iron Port Ghana. Our media partner, as usual, is the Business and Financial Times, the BNFT. And so if you want to have a grasp of all that transpired tonight on the show, make a date and grab the Thursday edition of the BNFT. And you'll be able to see all that happened here on the show tonight. Remember, we're going to be getting interactive with you, so you can send us your messages or comments ahead on our WhatsApp line, which is 0559-019-177. 0559-019-177. We shall be glad to read your messages to the rest of the world. Indeed, at the appropriate time, when I pick the signals from my producers, I shall activate the phone lines for you to call in and join the discussion. My name is Kennedy Mona. We'll be back right after this break. Please stay.
Every now and again, Goyle makes good things happen. This time, Goyle has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goyle Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goyle Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goyle Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goyle Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goyle has that sorted. Goyle, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse. And my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance Motor Policy. Currently, my goods are on the IC covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
All right, so it's time for us to take a look at happenings in the port and maritime industry in the world, and so we'll take a look at some few stories.
The National Ports Agency says Mohammedia Port near Casablanca will host the country's first liquefied natural gas LNG floating storage and regasification unit, FSRU. The National Ports Agency announced the update of Station C at the Mohammedia Port, which will now include an LNG terminal and an FSRU. Thus, Morocco's first LNG terminal will take place in Mohammedia. Under the National Port Master Plan for 2030, Mohammedia is to be an energy port. Another major goal is to form an alternative for Morocco to import LNG by sea. The U.S. ports and the White House are planning to introduce a new fee on long dwelling empty containers in an effort to tackle the supply chain crisis. In particular, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach announced a new fee on long dwelling empty containers, building on the success of the fee imposed on long dwelling import containers in November, said John Pocari, White House port envoy. The Port of Los Angeles plans to begin charging a fee to ocean carriers that allow empty containers to linger on the port's marine terminals for 9 days or longer. The fee, subject to approval by the Los Angeles Harbor Commission, will take effect on 30th January 2022. AP Moller Maersk AS is no longer the world's largest container line. The Danish carrier has been overtaken by the Mediterranean shipping company in terms of capacity, according to data compiled and published. MSC's fleet can carry 4,284,728 standard 20-foot containers, 1,888 more than Maersk, giving both a market share of 17%. Maersk, which first entered containerized trade in 1975, has held the top spot for decades. The carrier has been a pioneer in the industry, often breaking records by building the biggest ships. More recently, it has invested in vessels that can sail on carbon-neutral methanol. It still has the most capacity in terms of owned vessels. MSC has about 65% of its capacity from chartered ships, whereas Maersk only has 42%.
So those were some happenings in the port and shipping industry on the global stage. It's now time for us to go for the Goil TV market. And remember, the Goil TV market is about showcasing some of the products and services of one of our lead sponsors, Goil Company Limited. And this week's edition comes to you from the Second service station. Please enjoy.
Goil, Goil, in the service of the nation. North, south, east.
We are at the Sekandi Trotro station in the heart of Takoradi. So in Takoradi, we have stations in Sekandi, Esikado, Beposo. We have one at Bakechi. When you are going towards Western North, our stations stretch all the way to Halfasini, Enchi. We are well represented with about 5 stations in Takwa. We have stations all over. I want to assure drivers that we have their interest at heart. So they should be well aware that when they get to our stations, they are assured of quality, quantity, and they are assured of good customer service.
Yeah, advert baby Martin Ka Super SP 195. Yeah, petrol ni ahabamono. Ana petrol normal one na wo market no. Kokko a obi anim no. Eniye. Uto di gu ka mu a esansa na ho ode no ewo soro ni ntino. Ete ewo wo ka no. Esan so e ma winji no eye adwuma yie. But we no e ba ni yie. Enti enja sa black smoke bia eden. Engine block. In addition to that, the Edro Asu Ghana Hano, your diesel now hold 2 days of diesel. Your high sulfur diesel and your ultra low sulfur diesel. It is gone. Young high sulfur and farm yes on ultra low sulfur. Oko Europe me at the idea. The higher sulfur I was omunya 10 ppm. Uba Ghana ha. The higher sulfur, I was a 50 ppm. That is the maximum. And to stations being as high as 1,500 ppm. Into Okota, for signboard lose the air for power. OCF into better, or damage your car. Stay with that. Yeah, ultra low sulfur. So the difference in 50 ppm now, if you are 10 ppm, 15, 19, and I hear Tom. If you pass Odia, Ubenya will you diesel no, anymore. Now a drone so start a extra benefit to you.
XPP additive na our go for no no. Otu option is so overfim. So who injectors all of you. All to go for no. No clean who injectors and so more. So no according to other essential to injector cleaner is it good. Who engine another kind of beam. And my enemy now when you to no. So extra on more mileage.
Go for product or more the abano. Yeti a ye chine say one product in your quality. You say Jumaya me and no lady and son with Diane a prayer. It's be a baby our car and hopia and say ye net median queen in Scottish Busia. Yeah, the last year election year, a whole lot of activities was so and so yes statistics so bad as a The better go of front was you may dear what did the boy in last year. Yeah, in Renfi once that. Your cost was for that. Secondary station, yet that was a pa. To see a DNA to why yes, you should be a Jumedia or do a region. Now, you would say, would you medino as well, ni papa. Or sometimes we be see I mean, share any jacket me see I may say, I'm a monetarian. We will say, would you who need palm?
And for yes, okay. Yes, you if you done the other time, Yarepa, driver for the American and you see, you're boy the little local sala. Nay, I branch of war. So, nay, it didn't tell what on connection one, because of website and the most of them will get. If we are made money, one answer for what on the position, a dream now congress to be made. You may only down per day. Therefore, one production or your good.
Well, yeah. Ghana yala ya dia nti obi biala wale ye no where would standard of Ghana nti one petrol oye nti obeye de biala boka ko to fuel o
me sia di pi e fi go fo minya car 2 years me use gold products minya problem ja ti gold at times ye bit mpa me di from me de catch drivers no
mohun must one what difference no so at the end of the day now calculate so we invest now the car no kwa nya o dia ba betra fie car say o dia nso a we can be ball now so for no na so car ni car na da bi car o be ko no de e so hu say eno no e yes sen say de e be ye short term
Goil leaves good energy.
All right, so that was the Guel TV Market, which came to you live from the Kagundi service station in the Western region. It's now time for us to zoom into our discussion proper tonight. And tonight we're taking a look at the rules of origin. If you are monitored international trade closely, you would realize that one of the terms that we use frequently is the rules of origin. Now, what's the rules of origin? What role does it play in international and continental trade? I mean, how important is it? Tonight we've assembled a team of experts to delve into this particular issue, tell us what it is all about so that we can educate, the public on what the rules of origin are. But before we zoom into that discussion, you would have also known that one thorny issue that came up in the course of the week was the reversal of the benchmark values. It was announced in the government's economic policy statement in the budget. And, some organizations like the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, and allied agencies, stood up vehemently and argued that this should not happen. And so once government announced that it's going to start the implementation, that's the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, they again, rose up in arms against government and said, no, this was not going to happen. And just last night, we heard about the news that the president had decided to tell them to suspend the implementation of the reversal until broader consultations were done. And so we just basically want to seek to find out what GUTA makes of this particular directive of the president for the suspension of this particular directive. And so I understand we have Dr. Joseph Obeng on the line. He's the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. We say good evening to you, Doc.
Good evening, boss.
I'm sure you are all smiles now, even though the president's directive for the suspension doesn't mean that it's not going to be reversed.
You know that I'm really tired. I've lost my voice, all because of this reversal. But nonetheless, we are very grateful to the president for listening to the pleas of the trading community. So we are happy and we are opening up for a fruitful stakeholder engagement. We are going to be very objective and positive, and we will think about our nation. So we do something that will benefit the nation at large. The government, the AGI will have will have to be compensated. GUTA or the trading community will have to be compensated, and as well as the consuming public. So this is the mindset that will be going to the stakeholder engagement. But we believe that we have to reach a positive consensus before thinking about any implementation of the sort. So we take advantage to ask GRA to withdraw his earlier circular that was going around, indicating that they have deferred their implementation to 17th. It goes contrary to the direction of the president. What the president has said that we should do stakeholder engagement so that when we conclude and we have built consensus, then we can situate the issue of the benchmark.
All right, so Doc, you are going into these consultations with an already entrenched position, and your position is that there should be no reversal of the benchmark values because you think that it's helping the generality of the people, and you in particular, the traders. How do you see yourself fitting into these discussions when eventually they begin? And how soon also do you think that these engagements are going to begin?
I think before I started talking, I said that we are going to be very objective. We are not going to take any entrenched position. We have to be Ghanaians, and we have to be patriotic. We don't need, AGI doesn't have to be entrenched in its position. Neither do we also have to be entrenched on our positions, and government also need not to be entrenched. We have to have open discussion and fund, and that's what we set ourselves to do. That's where the Ghanaian public will have confidence in us. So we are not just going to be nuisance on the nation. And because you asked me a question, let me answer. You see, this benchmark came not out of emptiness. It came because there was a huge problem. And so if you say you are reversing the policy that came to solve a problem, then definitely you are not reversing as to the problem that the benchmark came to solve. And that's what we were seeking, that they should fund a mitigating factor that will cushion the plight of the trading community as well as the consuming public. And this one was even well cashed out in the finance minister's own press conference barely 3 or 4 weeks ago, where they have promised that they acknowledge the fact that the reversal of the benchmark is going to affect the trading community. And so they want to fund a mitigating factor to cushion this. This is exactly what the finance minister said. And if you haven't been able to do that, then why do you go ahead in the first place to implement a policy that you have accepted that it will be a problem to us, especially at this week of the pandemic? So it is necessary that we all sit down to do something that will not have unnecessary effect on businesses, to collapse them, as well as punishing the consuming public at this time where they need food to consume, where they need medicine also to fight the disease. So that's what we all have to place our mind and have open minds. So we are waiting for a fruitful engagement, a stakeholder engagement, and that's what we are waiting. And nobody should just have the entrenched position like you asked me, that definitely on the 17th, this is what we are going to do. That one is not going to accept anything that will seem to be in position on us will never be accepted.
Okay, Doc, I want to find out from you, can you give us an idea with regards to some of the organizations that you're going to be having these stakeholder engagements with, and whether you are satisfied with the number of commodities that will be affected by the values?
Yeah, the number of commodities, these are all the reasons why we are going to, for this stakeholder engagement. We have to find out whether these goods that we're talking about, we are self-sufficient. We have to find out if the production of these goods are very competitive, that are they not unnecessarily overpriced, and if they are unnecessarily overpriced, how are we going to help those companies or find a solution to it? Or if it is not even relevant for the production of this cost, production does not mean that you produce anything that you do not have competitive advantage. because we recognize that there are so many companies that are doing extremely well. That's the problem that I have with the whole AGI thing. They are not even talking about these companies that are doing well, but they are just helping those who are not doing well to lobby government to twist their competitors so that they can have their way. Yeah.
All right. So, who are some of the engagement stakeholders that you're going to be dealing with?
You know, most of these stakeholders, we're talking about the trading community. We're talking, which consists of so many commodity lines. We have those of us who import general goods and all that, the automobile dealers, pharmaceuticals, and all that. These are the broad areas of the people who are going to do this engagement, plus our clearing agents, plus, and then AGI as well.
All right. So, how soon do you intend? Do you think that these engagements are going to commence, and how long would it last?
Yeah, it depends on government. We are open to this discussion, and we are waiting as soon as we are called for this discussion. So you see, the most lights on government to fast track these discussions, so that we can prefer some solution to this imminent crisis.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Dr. Joseph Obing is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, bringing us up to speed with their thoughts as far as the directive, latest directive by His Excellency President Akufo-Addo is concerned. He says Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority should hold on with the implementation of the revision of the benchmark values. And GUTA says this welcome news. They are willing and ready to go for the stakeholder engagements, and he said they are not going to go with an entrenched position. They are going to let cool heads prevail, and at the end of the day, he's certain that understanding would be made, and then they would go about their business as is expected of them. So we thank him so much for obliging us this evening on Iron Port. It's now time for us to come in studio and do our main discussion. And like I indicated, we are tonight going to be talking about the rules of origin in international trade, in continental trade, what it is, and how important it is, to trade. And so tonight we have in the studios Mr. Dodi Seidu. He's an after consultant and Frontiers Market Advisor. Frontier Market Advisors. Yes. Is that the name of your company?
Yes, it is.
Frontier Market Advisors, yes. All right. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Seidu, for joining us. And also in the studios is our very old Mr. Apia Kusi Adumako, Country Director, CATS International, Accra. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Let me say Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And so let me find out from you. First of all, you just had my discussion with the GUTA president, their position on the, directive by the president for suspension of the revision of the benchmark values. Let's see. What do you think?
Well, I think from my perspective as an international trade person, I think it is welcome news that there is some more opportunity for more stakeholder engagement. We have at least two major schools of thought. Yeah. One group wanting there to be an increase in the benchmark values with the view that that would enable them to, produce, manufacture, and meet, market requirements, or take advantage of the market opportunity. And one group that wouldn't want it to be so because, it will keep prices at a certain level. So for me, consultation is a very good thing. Let's do it. And like you asked during the interview, there shouldn't be entrenched positions. We should look at the interest of the country. We should look at the objective one to, improve revenue from trade, but at the same time also facilitate trade. Yeah. For me, those are the two critical things that must be pushed for.
Right. Mr. Adumako, your take on benchmark values?
I think it's a very difficult decision for government, but I think that in the interest of Ghana, we cannot continue to dump our country with imported goods at the expense of growing our local industries. I think the decision was influenced by the number of cargoes that were going to Lomé Airport. And as you see, Lomé is like a free port. Almost everything goes there. Togo doesn't have any strong industries. in the short term, it's painful for us to pay more for some imported goods, but in the long run, we'll be able to develop our muscles as a producing country. When the COVID came, if it wasn't the fact that our industries were in a position, I think that would have all suffocated under the weight of COVID. So it's a short-term pain that we have to go through. But for me, if you ask me, I think that between importation and exportation, importation, domestic production, I'll go for domestic production. So I stand with AGI and the local manufacturers, and this is the way that will build a country. No country has ever developed with, unlimited access to imported goods at a lower tariffs. When you do so, you kill your industries, and there will be no appetite for people to invest in the manufacturing sector. Sorry, it's hard, but then, it's still the way forward as a country.
I'm happy we don't have Dr. Obi in the studios here. I'm sure there would have been some, tension here if you were around. But let's zoom into our discussion proper tonight. And let me start with you, Mr. Saidu, and find out if you can explain to us what the rules of origin, is. What are they? We hear that rules of origin. What is it?
Thank you very much. So we're talking about the cross-border trade of goods or products.
Right.
And when goods cross borders, the customs bodies, the customs authorities have to do classification, they have to do valuation, and to do that, they normally would ask for the geographic or economic origin of the product. And that basically means where is the product coming from in terms of the country or place where it was manufactured or where it was is being brought from. And those processes for determining the nationality of the product is what we call rules of origin. So basically it's about processes, laws, and the way we determine the origin of a product. That is basically what rules of origin are. Yes, and as much as trading is concerned, this is very important because you determine the preference that a product will get from the origin that the product or where the product is coming from. So until you know that, you cannot provide whether it's low tariff, no tariff, or higher tariff. You cannot determine that until you know the origin of the product.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned two keywords, classification, valuation. Tell us about them.
So usually when, for all products in the world, anything you can think about, from my spectacles to the bottle of water here, the iPad or the microphone we're using, customs has a way of identifying the product. So that is where they would look at the classification. And then they use the harmonized commodity system, the harmonized code, to do that. Then from that, they would have to determine the value of the product. And to do that, they have to look at the, what is the value addition, the production cost, the constituent parts. And of course, in some cases, they will use the benchmark values, which is why we're having this discussion. And then, of course, the country of origin to be able to come up with, the valuation.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Adamako, rules of origin, he has explained what it is. And I want to find out from you how key these rules of origin are in continental trade.
Okay. Before I answer the question, let me just give this analogy. In football, we have under 17, under 20. And for one to play in a particular football match, we need to be able to know his date of birth. The reason being that if you don't have a system of knowing people's date of birth, you would find a 28-year-old footballer playing in under 17, and then that will give that person a kind of a competitive edge. He has a better stamina, strength than those who are below 17. And at the end of the day, you will see that the essence of the tournament will be defeated. Yeah. And so in international trade, as Dodi said, the rules of origin has been set to ensure that those members that are on the trading block benefit from goods that originate from their region. Because if you don't put a very strong rules of origin system in place, there will be like free ride. For example, people could import goods from China or any other country into their country, and then repackage them and then start sending them to other countries in the name of AFTA. When you do so, because the goods from non-party states, countries that are not signatories to the AFCFTA, once the goods come from, let's say, China into those countries, there will be no, once the goods arrive there and they are shipping it to other countries, there will be no tariffs on them, because we assume that the goods are moved from one African country to another African country. But when you subject the goods under the lens of the rules of origin, you then be able to know that, look, the goods are originating from a different country. When the goods came into the African country, there was no value addition, or perhaps the value addition, the only work that was done was just the labeling or the packaging. And so that goods, when you export into another African country, under the AFCFTA, it will not qualify as a product originating from Africa. And so the custom tariffs would have to be placed on it. I mean, for example, when you go to Europe, before the UK left the EU, any goods moving from the EU, there is a way of analyzing, assessing its origin. And so goods could move from one border to another without any restriction, quantity and tariffs on them. But now UK has left the EU market. And so if the UK goods are going into European countries, they have to pay taxes and tariffs on them. And so rules of origin essentially helps reduce the cost of also trading among member countries. And at the end of the day, the consumers are also going to benefit from reduced tariffs. Removal of the tariffs, because the consumer and even producer surplus are also going to go up because of the rules of origin.
All right. So let me come to you. I know the rules of origin is a whole gamut of rules, regulations, and all that, and some have been agreed on, and that's what we as a country are operating with. What are these that have been agreed on, and which of them are outstanding?
Okay, so I feel from Mr. Appiah's comment or response, I should go back just one step.
Okay.
Then I'll answer the question. So we're talking about rules of origin in the context of the continental free trade area. Now, countries create free trade areas or preferential trade areas, or they develop and agree on trade to take advantage of the opportunities that exist either within the countries or amongst themselves. So when you are creating those, or when you are signing the free trade agreements, your aim is to create the opportunity for the citizens, the industries, and the countries to benefit from that. Now, before trade agreements are signed, countries trade on, with tariffs. The tariffs are what the governments use, some governments use as revenue. Of course, in Africa, every government uses it. So for me, if I'm a country to forego the tariff, the revenue I would have taken, I need to make sure that you really prove to me that the product you are bringing into my country comes from your country. And those are generally the rules of origin. So that's just by one step back. Now, in the context of the AFCFTA, there are over 8,000 product lines that are generally traded. The idea has been to liberalize about 90% of those product lines, which is traded across the continent. And for that, as we speak now, over 87% of those product lines have been agreed. What it means is that specific rules have been agreed for determining their origin. So the remaining, let's say roughly 2.5 to 3% is what are outstanding.
Right.
Some of those products are usually the everyday products that most of us use. So like sugar is outstanding. Textiles, outstanding. I think automobiles as well. These are all areas that many African countries are aiming to develop strategic industries in and have interest, in benefiting or taking advantage of those products. So there's just a little left, but those products have a wider impact across, because, for example, most of us put sugar in our
tea,
our tea or our food. Sugar is used in several industries, food and pharmaceutical industries. We all wear clothes, so certainly, textiles industry is very, very sensitive. We have automobiles because, as you're observing, there is a growing development of the automobile sector in Africa. There are both indigenous automobile industries. So if you take Ghana, for example, Kantanka is doing something. We also have the already established international automobile companies that are also establishing on the continent or in countries like Ghana and are looking to reach, so those are the sensitivities, and I'm sure that in the coming months, those outstanding issues will be dealt with by the member states of the AFCFTA.
All right, so that's with regards to the nearly 3% or 2.5% you mentioned. The 87%, what does it cover largely? Just briefly, some of them.
So largely, mostly every product. So be it, what comes to mind quickly? So whether it's my kente going across, chocolate products, sauces and preparations, sandals, just regular everyday plastics, aluminium products, things like that.
Okay. Mr. Adamako, let's find out whether the rules of origin have been made, simple and business friendly in our part of the world to allow for smooth, utilization, and especially after.
Okay. I think even within the ETLS, there was even some element of rules of origin.
That's the Eco's trade liberalization scheme?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you extrapolate into AFCFTA, I think it's a seamless transition. Just that the AFCFTA is very broad and covers a lot of, products with other rules. And the good thing about rules of origin and its implementation is that there is one body that has been given the license and authority. So in Ghana, the custom division of the Ghana Revenue Authority has been declared as the competent authority for AFCFTA, and also they are also the one required to issue the rules of origin certificate. And the process is not any cumbersome process. That if you are a business and you want to export your goods under the AFCFTA, you apply to customs. They come over to your factory, to assess what you do and your supply chain and the value addition that goes through, and then the customs, based upon the value addition that goes on, customs will be able to give you the certificate. And once that certificate is given to you, it means that you can be able to export to other countries, and it's end-to-end transaction. So that once you export your goods from here, it goes to South Africa. The South African authority knows that Kojo Mensah in Ghana, his certificate saying that these goods qualifies under the AFCFTA rules of origin. It means that there's no doubt about it. And even in cases where there are even doubts, there's also a dispute resolution mechanisms in between an importer and customs authority. For example, if you import goods into the country from, let's say, South Africa, and customs are saying that, look, these goods don't qualify because they doubt its origin.
Originality, yeah, sure.
Yes, the law says that, look, allow because and you can appeal the customs tariffs that they want to place on it. However, because of holding the goods at the port, it may either some of the goods may be perishable, or they also don't have space at the port. So you need to clear the goods, and you need to pay. You need to pay. You have to submit a banker's draft.
Yeah.
To customs, and then you'll be allowed to take the goods. And once the case is determined, it is found out that you are right and customs was wrong, your draft will be returned to you. But if it is found out that customs was right, and then the money of the draft, which is a component, which is a function of the duty that you are supposed to pay, would then be taken away from you.
All right, you mentioned the rules of origin certificate, and I just want to find out how easy it is to access this certificate, and who qualifies for it?
Who qualifies for it is and now government of Ghana wants to ensure that everyone doing business, you are kind of registered, and so I think for the first place to start is that you must be a registered business in the country. Another thing that GRA would also be interested to know is that are you paying your taxes as a company here? And then with that also, you can then apply to customs. Because in Ghana, for example, if you want to apply for government contract, they want to know how you are in compliance with your taxes and your SNAID things. All these things are gatekeeping to ensure that businesses do what is right. So once you meet this requirement, customs, now another AFCFTA, there's a new division under customs, which is called, I think, the tariffs division, headed by Mr. Session Akoto, a commissioner.
Okay.
And this is to ensure that businesses operating in Ghana under the AFCFTA would have a common point of call in their cases. So I think it's very easy. I mean, it's not you don't need to go and see a big man. You don't need to go and see your MP to give anybody a call. Yeah. Just follow the process, and I think you'll be able to get your rules of origin certificate.
Right. Okay.
Kennedy, can I add a bit
sure,
to that? So the question you asked was whether the rules of origin are complex, and for the sake of this conversation, I would say yes.
Okay.
Even though my colleague, who is very optimistic, thinks that it is not. It is complex because it is generally, of course, in trade language to start with. And secondly, the processes or the information is quite detailed. So let me just see if I can break it down for the general public. So there are two main ways of determining origin. The first one is what we call the wholly obtained process or criteria. And the second is what we call the substantial transformation criteria.
Right.
The wholly obtained criteria basically means that the product in question should number one, be originating from one country.
Right.
Two, should be naturally occurring, grown, or raised in that country. Okay. So usually this criteria applies to many natural products, many raw materials, many products originating from those raw materials.
Right.
So if we take, for example, minerals. So for example, our gold extracted from Ghana is qualifying as a Ghana product. If it's agricultural products, if it's a goat that was born in Wale, raised in Wale, and assuming it's being exported, whether it's been exported live, dressed, it would qualify as originating from Ghana.
Right.
So that is the first criteria. The second criteria, which is called the substantial transformation criteria, basically means that if the product
is not from one country, has parts or elements from another country, then it must be either processed, manufactured, or assembled in such a way that its characteristic is altered. Its characteristic is altered. So in that criteria, we have 4 sub-criteria. We have what we call the value addition. So sometimes the origination is known based on the value added. So assuming we imported something, an input or the raw material from another country into Ghana, the percentage value added would be a determination. I think in the AFCFTA, it should be at least 40%.
Right.
The second criteria is called the value of non-originating material. We know that you would import some non-originating materials not from your country.
Right.
You can import it from several countries, but in Ghana or in any other country, put it together, manufacture, and you become a product.
Right.
So in that case, we have to look at about 60% non-originating material. Then we have another criteria, sub-criteria called, specific works. In that case, the rules of origin would say that a specific processing, a specific manufacturing approach should be applied to be able to qualify. And the last one is what we call the change in tariff heading, where often the inputs come with different HS codes, but when you finish the manufacturing, the final output, which is most likely 1 unit, has a different HS code. And that also, so in the context of trade, all of these are specifically listed in the HS code. I think the 2022 HS code has been released. So it is there. And then in the AFCFTA context, there's also a full rules of origin document that details all of these things. So in some cases, it will be wholly obtained. In some cases, it will be value added. It will be specific works, or it will be value of non-originating material. Then Mr. Appiah also mentioned something that I think, for the sake of education, we need to highlight this. A lot of people undertake processes that they think qualify the products as coming from Ghana. If you take the AFCFTA Rules of Origin Annex, which is Annex 2, there is, in Article 7, there is a list of processes that we say do not qualify as conferring origin. So I'll just take some of them if time allows me.
Please.
So we call those things, as in trade language, we call them simple processing. Basically, what we are saying is that any process that is so simple that it didn't require specialized skills, specialized tools, then we call them simple processing. So he mentioned the example of labeling and packaging, for example. So if all you did was to import it from a third country, which is a country outside of Africa, or a country in Africa that is not a party to the AFCFTA agreement, and you just did simple labeling, it would not qualify as originating from Ghana. If you did simple packaging, it will not qualify. If you did rebagging and reboxing and recanning, it will not qualify. So those are some of the important things I would like to highlight. Thank you.
Okay, so let me still stay with you. And finally, the Economic Development in Africa Report 2019 stated that the rules of origin could be a game changer for the continent as long as they are simple, transparent, business-friendly, and predictable. Is that an assertion you agree with?
Certainly, I agree with that, because there will be no benefit of the free trade area if there are no rules of origin to start with. And like we've mentioned before, I think for the private sector, what I would like to say is that the private sector understanding of rules of origin is important. One, that those rules of origin will determine where you source your raw materials from. Okay? Because like I've just mentioned, or Mr. Appiah mentioned, you see that certain places where you import them from, your raw materials will not qualify you. Two, rules of origin will determine whether your product will be competitive in the destination market. So, like Mr. Appiah mentioned, if you imported a good from South Africa or from Ghana, you're exporting it from Ghana to South Africa, and assuming the country you're exporting to does not, you look at the tariff that you meet, your product will meet in that country, and then you determine, okay, if I do all my costing plus shipping plus distribution with this tariff, will I be able to compete in the destination market?
Right.
So that is very, very important. Rules of origin are also important for regional value chain development. Okay, so there are some industries that may find it beneficial because of rules of origin to locate aspects of their processes in different countries.
Okay.
So that is a rules of origin decision, because I forgot to mention, let me say it. One of the things about the AFCFTA rules of origin is a principle called cumulation, or you can use the word accumulation.
Okay.
So basically, the rules of origin is allowing or considering the whole of Africa and countries party to the AFCFTA agreement to be one territory.
Okay.
Which means that if I source parts of my product from different parts of Africa who are parties to the AFCFTA agreement, those products will qualify as originating. Which means that I can establish a factory in Ghana, I'll source some parts of my products or my inputs from Kenya, from from Southern Africa, from Northern Africa, and put it together in Ghana and export it back to South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt, and it will qualify as originating.
Okay.
So that is a very important advantage of the rules of origin.
Okay. All right. So let me come to you, Mr. Adumako, and find out whether you have anything to add with regards to this economic development report in 2019, which seeks to indicate that the rules of origin perhaps will not be as effective as we want it to be if it's not business friendly, it's not predictable, and all that.
Okay. So I think AFCFTA is learning from the mistakes of other free trade agreements and its implementation. That is why, right from the start, some of the protocols have been delayed, and a lot of things are being is being done in phases to allow for gradual assimilation and its implementation. And if you look at the rules of origin, what most countries, including Ghana, has done and is still about to do is also to ensure that there is no information asymmetry between the implementers of the rules of origin, that is the customs, and the private sector. So somewhere towards the last quarter of 2021, we saw the custom division of GRA being trained about the rules of origin. And I'm also informed that there's also another level of training to go for the private sector, so that they both have the same level of knowledge about it. And once people are informed about it, it will help them make the right investment decision as to which destination to source your raw materials from. For example, if you have to source your raw materials between, let's say, Kenya and India, knowing where that you want to ship your goods to other African countries, then you may want to consider the African as an option, because if you bring the products from India and it doesn't go through lots of accumulation and addition to it, then it will not qualify under as a product originating from Africa. And so with the knowledge and understanding of the private sector and effective implementation from the side of the customs, I think that its implementation will not be any problem compared with the past protocols and its implementation in Ghana.
All right, I'm still staying with you. I want to find out from you. I know there are legal provisions, covering the rules of origin. Whether you are aware of this and how these rules are being implemented, the provisions.
Okay, so the rules of origin, they are all derived its strength from the parent protocols that member states sign and ratify. And so the document doesn't need to go to Parliament for any ratification. It's only the phase 2 protocols that may, because they are different things that may need assent. But the rules of origins wouldn't need any further. Once it comes, it's like the ECOWAS CET. it comes and say, look, it's part of our laws, and so it needs to be applied. So it's not any extensive legal regime. It's just a collection of, I would say that just a collection of the existing one that have all been packaged. But now this one, we are looking at the broader continent as a trading area compared with the ETLS.
Right.
Maybe Dodi has...
You want to add something here?
Yeah. So two things from earlier. So the process for obtaining certificate of origin is in the ICOM system. Okay. At this point, like Mr. Appiah mentioned, it's customs authority that is mandated to implement it.
Right.
But as we speak now, there's a transition. So it's still with Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And so if you want to get your certificate of origin for your product, you would have to apply through the ICOMS. If you go to the ICOMS website, you should be able to do that application process. But basically, it involves applying for a GNCCI registration number, using that number to apply for a certificate of origin for the specific product you intend to export. So once you do the application, if there's a need, there's a committee that would like to maybe visit your production site and make sure that whatever you've claiming that the product is from Ghana is really from Ghana. And then subsequently, if they are satisfied, they will issue that. Yes, once the rules of origin has been agreed, customs have to update their systems and their schedules. So, and usually, I mean, let me say this for the private sector, there's always a lag between when government signs a document and when it becomes, an implementation document.
Right.
So that is what Mr. Appiah mentioned. We are going through that now. The training for customs is happening. The updating of their schedules and systems is happening so that they can be able to, receive and recognize an AFCFTA certificate of origin.
Right.
It applies in both ways. If a product is coming from another African country to Ghana, Ghana's customs must be able to verify the certificate of origin. And in the same way, if a product from Ghana is going to another African country, they should be able to verify that. These are the processes that has also delayed a bit the actual trading under the AFCFTA because countries are doing all of these system changes in the background.
Okay. Right, thank you very much indeed. This is our report here on Metropolitan Television, and tonight we're taking a look at the rules of origin, the impact on international trade, and we have in the studios Mr. Dodi Seidu. He is an AFTA consultant and frontier market advisors. We also have Mr. Appiah Kusiadumaku, country director, CATS International Accra. They are the two gentlemen we're doing the discussion with tonight on our report. We're going for a quick break. When we bounce back, we'll continue the discussion. Please stay.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the IC covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects, and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
So you're welcome back. We move straight to our discussion, but I've been given the green light by my producer to activate the phone line, so you can call in and contribute to the discussion. The number to dial is 020-552-8353, 020-552-8353. You can call in and ask my guests any question, or if you want to make a comment or give a contribution, you are at liberty to phone in. This message says, "Good evening, Mr. Host and your guests. I want to venture into production. How do I go through the after process?" This one is from Inshra, from Gomwa. Who would want to oblige, Inshra?
Yes, so Inshra, thank you for your question. It's just that it's not too detailed. Whatever you want to produce for export, we have given you the 2 key criteria for the origin determination. So make sure that your product is either wholly obtained or it is substantially transformed. And sometimes when it is wholly obtained, I mentioned that, and you derive a product from it. So what comes to mind, for example, is cassava. So cassava, maybe gari, for example, can be wholly obtained because cassava in itself is naturally occurring. You plant the cassava, you process it into gari. So gari, for example, can become, so once your gari is ready or is going to be ready, you would, please, we're not saying that you don't go through the usual processes internally. That's in country. So for example, if you are producing food, you need to get FDA, you need to get GSA, all the local licenses you have to get. Then for you to export it outside of Ghana, that is when you need a certificate of origin. And then once you go through the process to get it, then you can export that specific variety of gari that you do, labeled, packaged for international trade.
Okay. All right. Now this one says, interesting discussion and I'm well informed by your guests. Please ask them what is the level of compliance from countries under the AFTA. This one is from Ishmael in Accra.
I would say that we are just relatively a young trading bloc. We started trading about a year now. And so we don't have to be so over ambitious in expecting so much. But so far, I think that the progress that has been made in AFTA is really significant and appreciable. When the EU started, I mean, when you go online, you will find out a lot of challenges, the teething problems that the EUs had when they started trading. And so, as they tell us that Rome was not built in a day, so also after success cannot be written overnight. But the good thing is that countries are serious about it. And now, for the first time, almost all countries in Africa have strengthened their manufacturing sector, so that they can produce and export to other African countries. Because if you are not able to produce and export under the AFTA, then there's no benefit for the AFTA for you, else you'll be all all that we're doing is sort of importing goods into your country. And when you keep on importing, it means that you are killing jobs and also weakening your local currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that level of acceptance and its uptake of AFTA is appreciable. And we know that in 5 years' time, when we do the first 5-year assessment, I think we'll be happy to know the story. In Ghana, we are doing very well, and I think Ghana is one of the countries under the AFCFTA that has done very well, and largely because of the fact that the Secretariat is also hosted here, and the President we have the National AFCFTA Implementation Committee and a lot of subcommittees, all of them working together to ensure the success of AFCFTA. Not all countries have been able to deploy resources like Ghana we have done.
Yeah.
But I think that Ghana's story will also be there for other countries to learn.
Absolutely. Right. You have anything to add, Mr. Dodi Asedu?
Yeah, I was going to say that the word compliance is a bit tricky because the AFCFTA is not mandatory for any African country to sign up to it.
Right.
So countries, we can only require compliance from those who have signed on. So that's the first point.
Right.
Yes, and like Mr. Appiah said, we are still in the beginning. Even though relatively we've made a lot of progress, we expect to see trading, intra-Africa trade between regional blocks. So that is also one clarification we need to make. The AFCFTA is about boosting trade at this point, not necessarily between or amongst countries belonging to one regional bloc.
Right.
So AFCFTA is not necessarily about trade in ECOWAS. It's rather about trade between ECOWAS countries and, for example, East African countries. What is it? Because at this point, all the trade is happening in the blocks.
Yeah.
Basically, ECOWAS members are trading with ECOWAS members. East Africa community members are trading with East African community members. But,
Southern Africa, yeah.
Yes, but we don't have intra-Africa trade between the regional blocks. So that is
ECOWAS and the East Africa or North Africa or South Africa.
That is where we need to. That's the whole idea of the AFCFTA. Yeah.
All right. So let me still stay with you and see whether strict enforcement of the rules of origin can yield some element of effectiveness in terms of after trading.
Certainly. I mean, you asked a question earlier, and I will add something to it. That's a question if the rules of origin will be the make or break, the game changer.
Absolutely.
There are two things that are known to be the game changer for trade in Africa. The first one is the rules of origin, and the second one is the non-tariff barriers, which is the group or a group of policies, regulations, and practices implemented by countries that negatively affect trade. But in terms of the rules of origin enforcement, yes, it has to be enforced, and it will be enforced. Like Mr. Appiah said, if it is not enforced, then there will be no need for the trade agreement. Then that was what we call trade deflection. Somebody will pick a product from a third country, that's a country that is not party to the AFCFTA, maybe bring it into an AFCFTA country, just relabel it and export. And that is not the objective of trade agreement. Trade agreements have the objective to engender industrialization. The whole idea of this AFCFTA is to create a bigger market for African products and African consumers. So I hope somebody's not thinking like that, because the opportunities to actually comply and take advantage of the rules of origin and the market is quite bigger. It will be very disingenuous for anybody to really try to, in a negative sense, take advantage of the market by bringing in goods that are not produced here. Because don't forget that the goods produced here also mean jobs. The goods produced in Africa also mean revenue and income for governments. And the AFCFTA is so far one of the agreements that has the objective to boost youth employment, to support SMEs, and also improve gender, women participation in the workforce.
Right.
So it is through the expanded market that companies would invest more, trade more, and be able to employ more people. So let's support it by complying with the rules of origin.
All right, so let me come to you, Mr. Adumako. You know, some governments harbor concerns that lax rules of origin could cause or could ravage some sectors of their industries, including textiles, automobiles, and all that. You know, do you think these concerns can be addressed?
Please, can you take the
clear
question?
any ambiguities?
The question. Can you take the question?
Yes, I'm saying some governments harbor concerns that lax rules of origin, like can ravage their domestic manufacturing sectors. You know, textiles, automobile, and all those things. And we're finding out whether these concerns can be addressed so that we can remove the fear and ambiguities that some of these governments harbor.
Yeah, I think my brother Dodi said it, but let me, for purpose of stress, let me paraphrase what he said, that if you do not have a very strong rules of origin, then you don't have a free trade. Because like, as I said of my earlier analogy, if you want to play, you know, in boxing, for example, we even play by weight, lightweight, super bantamweight, and featherweight. And if you are heavy, you have to go and play wrestling. All of these things to ensure that those who have signed for a particular agreement, they benefited. And so to ensure that there is clarity and a well-thought pattern for trade, the rules of origin is not written in any quantum mechanics that you need to go and see, a professor emeritus to explain, things to you. And they are not, if you are a trader, it's not anything that you cannot even, you have to struggle to understand. And for the automobile industries, we know, for example, that for now, what we are doing in most African countries is that we have, our countries have become more or less like assembling nations. And to the best of my knowledge, if you assemble a goose in your country and you want to export to other country, it doesn't qualify as the goose originating from what? Africa.
Right.
Yes. But the good thing is that the goose and its production is creating jobs in that African country. And so that is one advantage of having to assemble. And we should appreciate the appetite that these automobile companies are coming into our country to set. Ali, the first thing to start is what? You first start with your sales point here, and then the more you get more sales, then you consider
setting up a plant here.
Assembly plant. And then later on, when the demand increases, then you can consider how manufacturing everything from here. But we must also understand that in the car manufacturer and in most of these manufacturing companies, the parts are sourced worldwide. If you look at Boeing, for example, Boeing has over 20,000 suppliers for their Boeing 787, their aircraft, and they come from all over the world. And the rules of origin are very, very, clear on them. It may help it may support some products that are very monolithic, that do not contain a lot of components and parts. But for those ones that are very diverse, like airplane and cars and those kind of things, you may not be able to benefit from it essentially, because once you assemble VW here in Ghana, it goes to Togo. You can't say that because the thing is coming from Ghana. Ghana is an AFTA member, so it's duty free. No, the Togolese authorities would have to put some taxes on it. Maybe if I've not put it well, Dodi can give clarity on it, on the automobile sector.
Well, not on the automobile sector specifically, but on the broader question of countries' concerns. I come from a school of thought in trade that as much as you would like to export, you should also be open to imports. Some countries have what we call the mercantilist thinking, where they only believe that they should produce and export and not, open up for other people. So the concerns that these countries have may be legitimate in terms of how opening up to other countries' imports may affect their domestic industry. But at the same time also, they have the opportunity to also take advantage of other countries' markets. As we speak, various regional economic communities, ECOWAS, SADC, and others, are all establishing or developing both regional AFCFTA strategies, and countries are also developing national strategies. So Ghana, I understand, is developing a national strategy to take advantage of the AFCFTA.
Okay.
And certain products have been identified as having the potential to take advantage of the market. So I'm saying that whilst the fear is there, the response will be to develop a strategy to look at your country's strengths and weaknesses export-wise, and develop the appropriate, mechanisms to take advantage of those markets, whilst, of course, opening your market also for others, because after all, no country is self-sufficient in everything.
Absolutely. All right, this message says, dear host, this is a very educative and insightful program. Please keep the good work. My question is, how do the parties remove non-tariff barriers in the trade? Usually this is more pervasive than the tariffs themselves. My name is Bernard Akwesi Akati in Accra.
Yes, so you see, for me, speaking from my personal point of view, I think that the non-tariff barriers are actually the problem we have. So we're talking about red tape, delays, systemic issues, whether it's network is down, the lack of harmonizing working hours between border institutions. So, for example, you can get to a transit border or a frontier, and maybe one institution that is supposed to be there has closed. All those things. How do we remove it? For me, it's political will. We need the commitment, not just to sign. I'm talking about African countries, not just to sign the agreement, but we need a commitment to actually implement these agreements and to make sure that we can take advantage of these. Again, let me say that we've tried many economic development theories in Africa. And I want to say that trade is actually what we've not done in a long time. And being able to trade amongst ourselves, for me, is what will bring us real economic prosperity in Africa. So it's in our interest. And let me say this to also say that trade affects everybody. Trade affects everybody. Everybody watching, listening, those of us in the studio, no matter who you are, we are all affected by trade, which means that the food we eat, by all means, part of it comes from somewhere. Even the chicken, the poultry products, the chicken, the day-old chick is hatched somewhere, imported into Ghana, grown here, and it becomes consumption. So it's in our interest to make sure that we facilitate trade, legitimate trade, by removing all the red tape and those things that affect the time and cost of trade, which invariably affects all of us.
All right. Let me come to you. We have barely 3 minutes to wrap up, but I just want to find out from you how the private sector should position themselves to take advantage of the rules of origin.
I think AFCFTA is about the private sector. And as we know, private sector is also the engine of growth for every economy. And with AFCFTA in place, if you want to be able to export, because you have a bigger market to export your goods duty-free, quota-free. And so once you understand the rules of origin and its dynamics, it will help you to know where to source your goods from and what kind of processes that you need to add to it to allow you to qualify as fully, to qualify to be exported without any tariffs when it gets to a party state. And this is what essentially the private sector needs to know. I know that there's going to be a national sensitization workshop for the private sector in terms of understanding the rules of origin and its implementation. Once they take the lessons seriously, I think that they will emerge as winners under the AFCFTA. Like the president has been saying that he wants Ghana to be on the top of the league of countries that are benefiting from AFCFTA. That is ability to produce more and export to other African countries without any issues. Our port is being expanded. And all these things will help intra-African trade in the coming years.
Right. Just in 30 seconds, what should the private sector be doing to take advantage of the rules of origin?
The private sector needs to understand the rules. They need to really invest time and resources to read the rules. If necessary, engage somebody who can help them to understand the rules, especially when it comes to the specific products they are manufacturing, intend to manufacture, the rules in the destination countries, the requirements. These are all things that a private sector must prepare. So, and then of course, for you to take advantage of the rules, you need to register and obtain your certificate of origin for your specific product. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And that's how we draw the curtain on tonight's edition of Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. Remember, I was speaking to Mr. Dodi Seidu, after consultant with the Frontier Market Advisors, Mr. Apia Kusi Adumaku, Country Director, CATS International Accra. We've been discussing the rules of origin, how they help in international trade, and you heard them. We will say a big thank you to our sponsors, Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Well Company Limited, Ghana Revenue Authority, Serene Insurance, and Ghana Link Network Services, they are operators on integrated customs management system at our ports. We thank you so much for joining us. Have a super week ahead. God willing, next week, we'll see you again.